This is a 2014 Chevy Silverado V8 engine, and it is running rich. I'm talking like Scrooge McDuck level of richness on both banks. Yeah, so we have a P0172 rich bank 1, P0175 rich bank 2. So the story is, this guy brought this truck in about a week and a half ago, and he said the cooling fans would not turn off. He replaced the coolant temperature sensor, but still had the same problem. I told him to change the thermostat. That's pretty classic GM symptoms. If the computer doesn't see the engine warm up as quickly as it thinks it should, it doesn't know what to do. It assumes the worst, and it turns on the cooling fans. A lot of times it'll peg out the temperature gauge, either all the way hot or all the way cold. And they do a lot of weird things. Sometimes they even go into limp mode. Anyway, he changed the thermostat. Everything was fine. He drove it all the way to Texas and back, and now, maybe this is even before he left, it had these problems with running rich. It seems like it has to be something that happened when they changed the thermostat, unless this is just some kind of coincidence. But there's just not a whole lot of things that can make an engine run rich. There's lots of things that can make it run lean, but to make it run rich on both banks, that's kind of unusual. I mean, really, the only thing it could be is some kind of problem with the purge valve. And I've already checked that. I think it's working fine. In fact, they had it unhooked when they brought it in, and it didn't make any difference. Problem with the mass airflow sensor, I guess that could be it. Or, some other way that it's getting fuel into the engine without the computer knowing about it. So let's poke around a bit and see if we can figure it out. It's only been running for about a minute. It's already in closed loop. So the fuel trims are not crazy right now. So the total fuel trim's about -10. Did this thing just fix itself? So one thing you always want to check on these GMs is the fuel alcohol content. This one's at about 10%. That's probably reasonable. This is a 14. I think these have a sensor for the alcohol content. The older trucks that don't have the sensor, they just calculate the alcohol content based on, other sensors. And if you make a lot of short trips and don't let the engine warm up, the alcohol content will creep up and it'll make them run rich. It dumps in more fuel because it thinks it's watered down with alcohol. O2 sensors look fine. So the sensor 1 is switching. Sensor 2 is pretty steady. Okay, so our total fuel trim's down to -20. Like to see it be within 10%. Well, something's wrong. It's been running for almost 15 minutes and the coolant temperature's only at 120 Fahrenheit. What's that, like 30 degrees Celsius? I'm also in the generic OBD2, so I know it's not lying about the temperature. Sure enough, it's stone cold. But also, it's completely out of coolant. I don't know what's up with that. That's a little more realistic. I'm a bit concerned about the airflow rate, the mass airflow rate. It's gone way down since the engine warmed up. See, our fuel trim's still a little bit negative, so it's still running a little bit rich. I think we're going to clean the mass airflow sensor, see if that helps us. Maybe they knocked some junk into it when they had that off there, changing the thermostat. Otherwise, it seems to be fine. I don't know. Pretty weird. I cleaned the mass airflow sensor, and it seems to have made things worse. So the fuel trims are even higher, or lower, depending on how you want to look at it. So it's running richer, and the coolant temperature is now too high instead of too low. So I don't think the thermostat's opening. And here the fans are on right now. The temperature should be coming down, but it's not doing it. There we go. I thought that might do it. So I just blocked off the PCV system, and now our fuel trims are right down around 0. Okay, I think we got a bad high pressure fuel pump. Yeah, that's not right. Okay, I think this truck needs another thermostat, because the one he's got now doesn't seem to open. The one he replaced didn't want to close. So this guy can't win for losing. And then I think he's got a bad high pressure fuel pump. This engine is GDI, gasoline direct injected. So it's got a high pressure fuel pump down in the valley under this intake. I think it's kind of in the back. And it's got a plunger that runs right off the camshaft. And the seals start to leak and you get fuel in the oil. Then when the oil warms up, the fuel vapors come out. They get sucked up through the PCV system, the crankcase ventilation system. They come right into the intake and they get burned by the engine. And if you got a lot of fuel coming in that way, it makes the engine run rich. I think he also needs a thermostat. I know it's new, but new doesn't mean good. It's probably a dormant or something. I don't think it's opening. And it was about 1.5 gallons low on coolant. So I bet it overheated and boiled a bunch out. Yeah, needs a high pressure fuel pump and a thermostat, and I think he'll be good to go. I don't know if I'm going to do this job or if he's going to do it himself, but that's my official diagnosis. All right, Max, did you need attention? So it may seem like I just pulled a rabbit out of my hat. You know, we looked at the fuel trims and we blocked off the PCV, and abracadabra, it's a bad high pressure fuel pump. But I'm going to show you why that's kind of the only option. So this is a truth table. We need something that can make this engine run rich, affect both banks, and not set any other codes. So O2 sensor, that's not going to affect both banks. Cat converter on this engine shouldn't affect both banks. If it did, it should set a code. Mass airflow sensor, MAP sensor, that should set a code. The engine's constantly calculating how much air it thinks it needs based on RPM, load, throttle position, stuff like that. If it doesn't like what it sees, it'll throw a code. Misfires, that shouldn't affect both banks. If it did, again, we would see codes. Fuel pressure. That's a good option for an older fuel injected engine. If the fuel pressure is too high, it injects more fuel, will make the engine run rich. Don't think it applies to this engine because it's GDI and it has a fuel pressure sensor. Again, if it was bad, we would have a code. Fuel alcohol content, that's a super common problem on the older GMs. Don't think it applies to this engine. Purge valve is a pretty good option. If the purge valve is stuck open, it's pulling in vapors from the fuel tank. That will make it run rich, and that will affect both banks. But it's super easy to test. I just unhooked the hose from the purge valve, and there was no difference. Bad PCV valve or a problem with the EGR valve. This is more common on turbocharged engines, and I don't think this engine has an EGR, so that doesn't really apply to us. Coolant temperature. I thought for sure this was going to be the problem. He just replaced the coolant temperature sensor and the thermostat, and this can definitely make the engine run rich. If it's under-reporting, if it's telling the computer that the engine is cold when it's not cold, the computer will add more fuel. It basically turns on the choke because a cold engine needs more fuel. But there were no codes, and we can pretty easily test this just measuring the coolant temperature and comparing it to what we see on the scan tool. That just leaves fuel in the oil. It will make the engine run rich, it applies to both banks, and it will not set any codes. It's also really easy to test. You just block off the PCV system, and if the fuel trims come down, there's your problem. You're probably already doing this. You're doing it in your head instead of on a chalkboard. But the truth table is a handy tool for any kind of pseudo-logical system. Anyway, let's go fix the truck. If I remember right, like the entire wiring harness is attached to the back of this cover. don't come. There we go. There's a fuel pump back there. Like I said, it runs off the camshaft. So they want you to turn the engine over to make sure that the cam lobe is not engaged with the pump. It's on the base circle, I guess, so it's easier to install so it doesn't come shooting out of there under pressure. So we're supposed to put number 1 cylinder at top dead center exhaust. And I think what I'm going to do, this is number 1 cylinder right here. I'm going to turn it until I see the intake valve close. Okay, so the intake valve is opening. So if we go one more full turn of the crankshaft, that should put us at top dead center, or close enough anyway. Just remember the engine turns clockwise, looking from the front. All right, somehow I got myself all confused. This is a 4-cycle engine. There's an intake, compression, power, and exhaust cycles. That takes 2 complete rotations of the crankshaft, which means there are 2 top dead center locations. There's top dead center compression. That's the one we normally talk about for timing and adjusting valves. And there's top dead center exhaust. This is the one they want us to be on to get the cam in the right position to install the fuel pump. And there's several ways to get there. They make a special tool that drops down where the fuel pump is and sits on the cam lobe. I'm pretty sure it's kind of triangular shaped like this. And when the tool bottoms out, you're in the right position. I don't have that tool, but what I do have is the intake valve. I can see that through the head. So all I have to do is turn the engine in the normal clockwise direction until the intake valve just starts to open. That happens when the valves are in what's called overlap. It's a short time when the exhaust valve and intake valve are both slightly open at the same time, which is important for scavenging. And that happens right at top dead center exhaust. So if I just look down at the intake valve, as soon as it starts to open, I stop and I'm pretty close to top dead center exhaust. You don't have to be right on it. I mean, this thing can be a few degrees off and it's not going to make any difference. So that's the way I did it. You don't need to take the spark plug out and do a bunch of measurements or, feel for compression or anything like that. Just watch for this valve to move. All right, I think that's pretty close. So, there is a procedure for depressurizing the fuel system. My system is just to let it sit. It'll depressurize itself. Don't you worry. Come on. I know, I should take that bracket loose. I just didn't want to. It's bad enough they put it where they did. Then they made it about 3 miles long. Why? Are they that worried that the fuel line's going to jump off the engine? Okay. Oh no. My light's broken. That's a bummer. I've been through a lot with that light. I mean, a lot. Okay. Son of a biscuit. There we go. Oh, that's it. All right, everything is clean. Here's our new high pressure fuel pump. It's an AC Delco, straight from the GM mothership. Probably a pretty good sign that there's a known issue when the national GM parts system has 0 stock, but the local dealership has a dozen on the shelf. I mean, they don't even stock oil filters, and they had a dozen of these things. I think we're lined up pretty good on our camshaft. I will be careful when I run this down to try and go evenly. Click, click. Oh, there is a torque spec. I don't remember what it is. I don't think it's that important. GM says you cannot reuse these high pressure fuel lines. Every time you remove them, you're supposed to replace them. However, my local dealership had a dozen high pressure fuel pumps on the shelf and not a single high pressure fuel line. And they couldn't even order it. Might be able to get a Dorman, but I've been down that road before and they're plated and then the plating comes off. And anyway, I think it's better just to try and reuse the old one, tighten her a little extra tight, and it'll be fine. Don't you worry. Okay, that's it. The high pressure fuel pump is installed. Okay, I think that's that. And pull that thermostat out of there. Oh, of course. Ah, come on. This is a Moto Rad, which is aftermarket, but I mean, I think they're pretty decent parts. Spring's a little different, but otherwise, looks the same to me. I don't know. I'm gonna put in an AC Delco, and we'll see if it makes a difference. How gassy do we think the oil's gonna be? I did check the oil and it wasn't over full. But we're gonna go ahead and change it anyway. You know, gasoline in the oil is not nearly as bad as diesel in the oil. You know, the gasoline will vaporize and get burned by the engine through the PCV system. But if you get diesel in your oil, it just stays there and thins it out until all your bearings are gone. Oh, why is that thing so tight? Oh. 8 quarts of oil in this pig. Okay, I think that's it. Let's hook up some scan tools and fire it up. Yeah, I can't remember if there's any kind of priming procedure for this. I don't think so. The low pressure fuel pump should take care of that. Looks good. So if we add the long term and short term together, we're right around 0. It's going to take a while for that long term to correct. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature. Kind of cool, you can actually see where the thermostat opened. It took almost 30 minutes. This thing is really cold-blooded. But yeah, it's opened up now. Whew. That's close enough to 0 for me. Good. This truck is fixed. That's it. Pretty simple job, really. I mean, if you had some experience, you'd probably do it in about an hour, especially if you had the little special tool for measuring the cam position. But you can do it without that. And the pump is expensive. I think it's about $700 retail, but I've seen a number of these fail, and I've seen them run for a long time, and I've never seen an engine have, you know, long-term damage from gas in the oil. So it doesn't seem to hurt them. It is a super common problem, though. I thought there was a bulletin about it, but I couldn't find one. Anyway, thanks for watching. I had to make some more tweaks to the Herco tool changer. I don't know what happened to this thing, but I think somebody was messing around where they shouldn't have been messing around. So a couple of videos back, you may recall, I had to adjust these proc switches because the arm wouldn't swing all the way before it unclamped the tool. Well, a number of people correctly pointed out that it was doing the same thing when the tool change arm goes down and swings around 180 degrees. And the tool wasn't centered on the spindle before it tried to shove it back in. So I had to adjust this proc switch as well. That one tells it that it's all the way at the bottom. Anyway, I think we got it now. Yeah, that's what it should do. So my best guess for what happened here, I think somebody tried to reseal this tool change mechanism. It's clear full of oil. And you can see that the telltale signs of the red silicone poking out here and there. And when they put it back together, they didn't get these switches adjusted quite correctly. I'm not sure they got the damper set correctly either. The tool change arm, it really struggles to make that last, 4 or 5 degrees. But that's okay as long as the switches know where it's at. It's possible that they weren't even using the tool changer, the shop that I bought it from. It was a tool and die shop. They probably just had a ball mill, running a big, long 3D tool path. And, they weren't even worried about the tool changer. So anyway, it works now. Doesn't really matter how it got this way. Very nice.